Every new day is an invitation to consciously focus our attention and energy on the most basic needs. Simple, logical, right? But let me ask you something. What are those basic needs? Eating, sleeping, taking care of ourselves? Yes, and I would also say learning. We nourish the body with food, and we nourish the mind with words, knowledge, and experiences. Yet, the mind is not separate from the body. What we often consume with the mind echoes in the health of our body. Mens sana in corpore sano, a healthy mind in a healthy body. My name is Sofia, and right now you are chatting with the Pichicho. The first time we probably came across the word ritual was in Kubrick's film Eyes Wide Shut, or from someone else telling a rather unusual personal story. Say rituals, and people instantly think of secret societies. But let's be honest, they're not that secret if you can call them by name, right? When we feel lost or like we are missing a piece of the puzzle, the best move is to take a quick look at the origin, or in this case, the etymology of the word. Ritual comes from Latin, ritualis, the closest root we've got to our Western culture, and it literally means rite or custom. The thing is, we often attach a spiritual or religious meaning to the word, and so we automatically box it into that realm, which makes us think it's something we don't actually practice every day. But here's the twist. What if I told you that you can bring rituals into your daily life? Rituals that don't have to be religious at all, but that carry the same kind of energy, the same vibe that you usually reserve for something spiritual. The problem with spirituality these days, let's be honest, is that it's got way too much marketing wrapped around it. A lot of the so-called gurus out there promise well-being along the way and success at the finish line. That's solid marketing. But first, you gotta ask yourself, what does success even mean to you? Why do you want to start a so-called spiritual path? And putting spiritual in quotes, inverted commas here, because truth is, no one really decides to start the spiritual journey. Most of the time, something happens that shakes you, that doesn't quite line up with what you thought you knew. And boom, that's the beginning of it. And let me tell you, once it starts, there is no turning back. Spirituality isn't gonna hand you constant well-being on a silver platter. It's more like a roller coaster, I would say. If you think spirituality is all about relaxation and peace, what you're actually picturing is a day at the spa. Take hiking up a mountain, for example. It's tiring, your muscles ache, you might even run out of breath, but once you hit the summit, the view blows your mind. So, what do rituals have to do with spirituality? Well, if you stop boxing spirituality inside a temple, you will realize you can actually carry it with you everywhere, through habits, through customs, in other words, through rituals. Let me name a few artists who actually practiced rituals. For example, Georgia O'Keeffe. She loved starting her mornings at sunrise, lighting a fire, making tea, and watching the sun slowly rise. She enjoyed the stillness before the world woke up, and that practice worked for her. Jean Miro, for example. Every morning he woke up at 6 o'clock, had coffee with bread, and worked non-stop in his studio from 7 a.m. until noon. After that, he exercised, jumping rope, boxing or swimming, any activity that kept depression at bay. It was a strict routine, balancing inspiration and well-being, and that worked for him. Andy Warhol, another example. Every morning she'd have coffee and make a long phone call to her friend Pat Hackett, describing in detail what she had done the day before. She described those conversations word for word, and later they became her personal diary. That practice fed directly into her art, and it worked for her. Rituals can be meals, activities, thoughts, even conversations. And even though in this podcast you're listening to me without answering out loud, you're still responding in your mind, and that's its own kind of conversation. On the other hand, Pichichos also practice rituals. The first ones that come to my mind are elephants. Did you know that elephants perform rituals when a member of their herd dies? They gather around, touch the body, cover it with leaves or soil, and even return to the spot days later. It's as if they hold a collective memory, let's say. Sometimes they even carry the bodies of their calves for days until they find the right place to lay them to rest. Another ritual, or more like a mating rite, that ties into what we are talking about is the porcupines. The male only gets one shot a year to mate, since the females go into heat just once annually. One of the things they do to keep off courtship, well, the male literally pees all over the female after she releases a mucus to signal the right mate. Now, I'm not saying you should take this literally. Peeing on someone else you're trying to date? Nope. Probably not the best case scenario. Definitely won't go over well, and I doubt that you get the results you're hoping for. But here's the thing. There is a lesson in all of this. At least at the start, it's good to approach certain processes like mini rituals. I'm talking about doing things with intention and focus, not to manifest anything, but just to be in the doing. And once you set that intention, you're gonna let your unconscious do its thing too, because that's where your shadow hangs out. And honestly, the shadow isn't bad. It's part of you, something to embrace and accept. But that's a whole other chat for another episode. So, in the last episode, I mentioned something about the true self or the quantum self. Some people also call it the future self, because it's linked to the idea of a quantum double, a presence we usually can't sense with our normal 5 senses, but that can show up and guide us when we need it most. That said, I want to add that we are who we are, here and now. Getting too hooked on something out there to tell us what to do in this earthly life, honestly, that can be backfire big time. This idea comes from the physicist Jean-Pierre Gabriel Mallet, and it actually got backing from the American Institute of Physics in New York. The core idea here is that the universe is split into two. One side is particles, that's matter, and the other is waves, which is energy. So basically, we are made of both matter and energy. It's kind of like what's mentioned in the Emerald Tablet, that old alchemical and hermetic text, which is often seen as the source of the principle of correspondence and later got popularized in the Kybalion book. The famous line goes, "As above, so below." There are a few ways to translate it from French, but the gist is the same. Why bring up this iconic phrase? Well, because it lines up with so much of the symbolism we see in everyday life. Yin-yang, for example, the quantum self, or the quantum double, light and dark. You get the idea. Basically, we are talking about duality as the main thread behind everyday rituals. We are constantly caught between states of matter and spirit. Elephants facing the loss of a herd member are stuck between life and death. And the porcupine trying to mate is right in the middle of survival and the evolution of its species. Every morning when we wake up, we are caught between day and night. We live in a reality that swims between the conscious and the unconscious. That's duality. I'm gonna tell you a story. When I was in Buenos Aires, back in Argentina, I had this Akashic Records session with my therapist. And, she told me to ask my quantum self like 10 questions. The second that portal or window or whatever you want to call it opened up, I swear it felt like this crazy beam of energy just shot straight through me from the top of my head all the way down. Meanwhile, my friend was in the kitchen and I was in the bedroom. It was all online, and my therapist was like, "Look, the answers don't always come in words, because, I quote her, in the quantum world, human language is not really a thing." So yeah, it's kind of tricky to put all that info into words. And here's the wild part. I felt supercharged, like buzzing with energy, but at the same time totally drained. I couldn't keep up with it. I was literally just trying not to faint. And it was, oh my god, that was really hard. My friend, on the other hand, later told me she suddenly had this burst of energy, like cooking, cleaning, watching a show, even working out all at once, like multitasking on steroids. My therapist was wiped out too and told me, don't push it. Don't do these sessions too often because your body can't handle that much energy. And that's true. Honestly, it's the kind of thing I'd say you should try at least once in your life. Every quantum self shows up differently, so it's never the same twice. For me, the answers I got felt more like echoes, like whispers from some memory hidden deep in my unconscious. A lot of people keep asking the big question like, who are we? And where are we going? But honestly, the question that really hits home, the one both science and religion are kind of wrestling with, is where do we come from? Because if we are here right now, it means we've also been somewhere else. Maybe in the past, maybe in some time that's not now. There is this really interesting sci-fi movie called Arrival by Denis Villeneuve, and in it there is this alien language that's not spoken but written. It's all circular like spheres, and it goes beyond time itself. Can you even imagine learning a language where you don't have to conjugate verbs? Saves you a headache, right? But at the same time, it also means you have to see life without time as we know it. Can we pull that off? Probably not on this plane of existence. And sure, it's science fiction, but you can't just brush it off like, oh, that's impossible. I mean, think back. Stuff that used to be sci-fi is now everyday life. For example, iPads, holograms, AI. Back then, it was all out there, pie in the sky. Now, it's in our pockets. What's cool about Arrival, the movie, is that it digs into a science that a lot of serious science people still don't fully recognize as such. I am talking about linguistics. Language shapes how we see the world. The stuff we understand or even think we understand is there because we have named it. If it's got the name, it exists in our mental map. If it doesn't, it's invisible. I know what you're thinking. What about unicorns? Or like an orc in slippers having tea in your living room? Sure, it doesn't exist in our day-to-day reality, but it does exist in imagination, because you can name it. And that's basically like consciousness and the unconscious, the stuff we see, live, and do, and then the stuff that's hidden in the shadows. So, here's the question. Are the dreams you have at night real? If you say yes, then you're starting to get how duality works in your life. If you say no, well, you might just be pushing your shadow away, and that's fine too. It's all part of the process. Just like language, measured through the way we speak, can shape our thoughts and give form to the reality we live in, what you do also becomes true in your own world. Every action you take adds up and contributes to the reality you are creating. What I mean is, the reality a Tibetan monk lives is obviously not the same as, let's say, a woman from Buenos Aires living out on the island of Newfoundland and Labrador. Here I am, hello. Our past experiences, our language, our culture, even the concepts we've studied, all of that plays a huge role in how we look at and make sense of the world. That's why the meaning and the value you attach to certain words, like, for example, ritual, is something very personal. To borrow from the retired father of linguistics, Ferdinand Saussure, the meaning of the word splits into two parts: the signified, which is that personal emotional weight you give it to it, and the signifier, which is basically the encyclopedic definition strip of any feeling. So, if I say the word, dog, the textbook definition is a four-legged mammal, a canine. But that's not what usually pops into your head first. Maybe you picture your own pet if you have one, or a specific breed you like. For example, for me, I immediately think of a German Shepherd. That would be the signified, while the four-legged mammal definition is the signifier. Our world is both matter and energy. We are matter and energy. We are constantly living in this duality, and it's key to bring that into how we see our everyday lives. That's why rituals are not something separate from us. They're part of who we are, a blend of the material and the spiritual, and a way to embrace our own duality. Alrighty, I've got to wrap it up here. And I love to leave you with a little duality outing. You and your camera. Don't forget to charge your battery before heading out. And bring some water, maybe even for a mate, if that's your vibe. Please stay hydrated. Think of your camera as your tool, your brush, the instrument that lets you paint across the vast canvas of nature's masterpiece. And then there is you, the observer. But there is still one piece missing: your own worldview, your own sense of the energy that keeps this world moving. Oh, and before I forget, make sure to follow me on socials. You can find me as Sofia Urcle or under photographer of Pichicho's nickname. My pages are bilingual, Spanish and English. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel as well, where I'll share more about photography, art, philosophy, and of course, pichichos. Because honestly, life without pichichos, that would be a pretty lonely life. Alrighty, before leaving, say cheese!